Hello, and welcome to Composer Toolbox, the show that takes a look at the common techniques utilized by the master composers and how you can practically apply them. In the last episode, we looked at how Danny Elfman used and mutated the Batman theme throughout the 1989 movie Batman. So now I want to specifically look at the music that underscores the Joker. Now, as you may have noticed while watching the film or listening to the soundtrack, the Joker really has no theme. In all actuality, the music underscoring him is as sporadic and erratic as he is. But there do seem to be several key elements that Elfman uses throughout the score that make up the Joker's musical identity. Specifically, these are the use of 3/4 time, or a Straussian waltz, the use of the whole tone scale, the use of weird and off-the-wall textures and timbres, and the appropriation of music of all different sources for himself. So first, let's take a look at how 3/4 time in the Straussian waltz is used. The first Jack/Joker cue that utilizes 3/4 time is the shootout cue. Three/4 isn't used for any effect here, but it does establish a common theme that will be used throughout the rest of the film. The next major cue that uses a triple meter is the cue surgery, further locking in this idea in with our minds. Then the 3/4 time is used for great effect as Jack reveals himself out of the shadows to be Joker. Here, once he reveals himself, the music abruptly changes to the Straussian waltz, which is obviously a signature element of 3/4 time. This is also the first time that we see Joker appropriating music for himself, but more on that later. We can see the Joker's music consistently being in 3/4 throughout much of the rest of the film, such as here, here, especially here, Also, I want to make note of the use of the waltz explicitly both times in the film seems to act as bookends, his rise to power, and thusly his fall from power. But another element of the Joker's music is the whole tone scale, a scale completely made out of whole steps. The scale first appears in the cue Roof Fight underscoring Batman, and then again right after that in the cue Jack vs. Eckhart. The use of the scale in both of these scenes underscoring the two different characters seems to make a musical connection between the duality of the two. We, as the audience, assuming we knew nothing of Batman beforehand, don't know where the moral allegiances of either character lie. Batman hangs a criminal off a ledge at one point, and Jack appears to be into some really shady stuff with the police. But the use of the whole tone scale between these two scenes also seems to be representing physically dangerous spaces. And that's really how the whole tone scale is used throughout most of the rest of the film. It is purely associated with the Joker throughout all of Act 2 and much of Act 3. We can see this especially with the first paper spin using the whole tone scale, symbolizing the Joker's victory, The second paper throw utilizes a minor key, symbolizing Batman's victory in the narrative. Again, the association between the Joker and this unstable scale helps characterize him in a disjointed and erratic way. The next and one of the more obvious techniques for underscoring the Joker is Elfman's creative and use of weird and off-the-wall timbres and textures. Whereas Batman's music uses the full orchestral idiom, Jack in the Joker's music is again just as sporadic as he is. Elfman uses all kinds of orchestration techniques from pizzicato, to harmonics, to a solo jazz bass, to synthesizers, to a suspended cymbal inverted on a timpani head, and many other just Elfman-esque textures. But the last and one of the most interesting musical choices in relation to the Joker is how the Joker seems to be able to appropriate music for himself from many different sources. When when he's Jack, he's able to appropriate this jazz idiom reminiscent of 40s noir films. He appropriates the Straussian waltz, which almost seems metadiegetic. He appropriates the Stephen Foster song Beautiful Dreamer as a sort of insincere love theme for Vicky. And he even at some points appropriates the Batman theme for himself, representing his rise to power over Batman. But what's interesting is his also appropriation of diegetic music for himself. From Prince songs to this wacky infomercial music, the line is really blurred between the diegetic and the non-diegetic. Especially when we hear the waltz later in the film, it seems as if we're hearing what's inside the Joker's head. And that's a really cool technique, I think. Elfman's music for this film reacts less to what's happening on screen, and more to what the current victors of the narrative are thinking and feeling. I think this can be a very powerful musical storytelling tool, and one that can certainly help you create an original score. One that serves the story. And always remember that. Stick to the story. Anywho, if you like what I do and want to support me in my education, then please consider becoming a patron on Patreon. Every little bit goes a long way. Anyways, thank you for watching, and I'll see you later. Goodbye.